All right, let's look. See if we are live. Okay, looks like we're live. All right, folks, for anybody who is watching at the moment, um, even if this is later on, was a kind of unplanned but almost planned live stream. So right now, I'm just waiting to see if anybody's going to join us. So I'll give it a couple minutes. If you are here, let me know by giving a thumbs up, write in the comments. Aside from that, let me just go check on Instagram. I only had a couple people say that they wanted a live stream. So hold on for me just a moment. Okay. That's good to go. Again, if you're watching now live, then make sure you give me a thumbs up so that I know that you're watching. Let me know if the audio is okay. I can't actually tell if it's good or not right now. And you know what I might do? This is probably going to cause some feedback, but I'm just going to go to the YouTube app and see right there what it looks like. If you're watching this later and it's on replay, then it's probably going to be a little weird. Let's see. All right, it looks like the audio is working. I just watched it from my app. All right, folks, this right here is just a random little live stream that came up out of nowhere. I do have a video that is going to be coming up tomorrow. And for those of you that don't know, the video that is coming tomorrow was actually selected by you folks according to the votes that I received on both Instagram and YouTube. Usually, for some reason, in Instagram, people choose one video, and then on YouTube, they choose another one. I'm not sure why that happens, but I took into account the number of people that voted for each thing, even though if you look in the percentages, it might be different. But in this case, it turns out that the YouTube numbers were actually the accurate one. It was more people voting for that video. So the video that I will be filming later on will be the Pope, a father to the people. But in this case, we're just going to be talking about anything. Basically, the whole point of this live stream is just to take your questions. Right now, I'm here. I live in Japan, for those of you that don't know. I live in Tokyo. And right now is 9 p.m. in my time. So I'm wondering what time it is for you folks. Again, the audio might be a little weird. Let me just take a quick look. It looks like it's okay from my side, but I just want to verify. If you're watching, let me know. All right, let's see if anybody has joined. Give me a thumbs up if you hear me clearly, if you can see me. And because I know that it's an awkward time for most people that are watching this or that would be watching this live, I know that there might not be a lot of people watching right now. So it's kind of hard. That's a bad thing about living here in Japan. That most of the time when I want to film something like this, like a live, most people are asleep. So it's kind of hard to do a live stream in which you can get people asking questions and do the real live style. Makes it really difficult. So if you are awake and you are watching this, it would be really awesome to get your feedback, your questions. It could be about anything, literally. It doesn't have to be about any specific topic. If people don't show up anytime soon, I'll just basically start rambling about any topic that I want, maybe about the topic that we'll be speaking about tomorrow. And then when people start asking questions, I'll address those questions. Let's see if anybody has shown up yet. So I'm just checking on my phone and see if I see anyone there. Looks like somebody was here for a quick second and then disappeared. It says Florida Huntsman. Shabbat Shalom. If you are watching now, you're probably still in Shabbat, but it just ended for me because I'm in Japan, in Tokyo. So Shavuot Tov, from my side, we're in the future. Right now, it's already past that. Look, perfect. I already have some questions from Florida Huntsman, asking, how about Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri? A great rabbi. Some people say he's the Shaul of our times. For those of you who are not aware of this rabbi, he's basically an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, highly respected, debatably one of the greatest sages of our lifetime. And he was sought after by many people in the Orthodox community for prayers and blessings, and he was just extremely smart. And as the story goes, this rabbi ended up having visions of Yeshua, the Mashiach, but he didn't tell anybody that it was Yeshua. What he ended up doing is he wrote a note and he spoke about the Mashiach in a Yom Kippur message, and a drash is what we call it in Hebrew. So he had this drash and he spoke about seeing visions of the Mashiach. The Mashiach revealed himself to him. And he said, I'll let you know who the Mashiach is. And he wrote a note and he said, don't open this note until I've passed and a year after my death. So the note was there, and then the note was opened, but it was kind of a secret language, right? It was kind of like in code. I don't remember the exact message, but when you take the acronym of it, it basically reveals that the name of the Mashiach is Yehoshua. If you know Yehoshua, it's the longer version of Yeshua. Just like, for example, my name is Daniel, but the shortened version might be Danny. So what are my thoughts on Yitzhak Kaduri? I think that he was indeed a great rabbi, and although he had many great things to share, a lot of people still don't know if that message was authentic or not, especially in his circle, right? Personally, I do believe that the message was real. It was really him. And I think he really did see Yeshua in his vision. And even though a lot of people don't believe, especially because his son didn't want to believe it, there were many of his followers, many of his disciples that ended up becoming followers of Yeshua. And similarly to me, if I'm not mistaken, they are actually still walking out a Torah lifestyle, but under the light of Mashiach, understanding that he is indeed the Mashiach. Florida Huntsman, since you're the only one that's here with me, this is like a one-on-one. We might as well be doing a Zoom chat. You're asking, do you think he was saved? It's hard to say. You know, I can't really say. I don't know if he spoke to anyone. I don't know if he made anything happen. But to be honest with you, if he was willing to sacrifice his reputation in the Orthodox realm for the cause of Yeshua, I think he did give his life to the Mashiach, and by the grace of God, he might perhaps have been saved, if you will. Just real quick, I just have to, this is so random, but I have to respond to my wife. She's in the other room. She's not watching. Okay, we have somebody else. Just Cool Productions. Shalom. Shalom to you. Thanks for joining. Right now, it looks like it's just three of us. It's the Florida Huntsman and you, yourself, Just Cool Productions. And basically, this live stream is just taking questions. We can talk about anything. It's really chill, really casual. Because of the time zone that I'm in right now, it's hard to get people together to have really good conversations and a lot of questions because everybody's asleep. So let me know, what time is it for you guys right now that are watching? Florida Huntsman, if you really are in Florida, I'm assuming that it must be pretty early in the morning. Just Cool Productions, I don't know where you are, so let me know, what time is it for you? Yeah, so right now we were just talking about Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri. I don't know what his standing was spiritually when he died, but I do believe that he really did see Yeshua in his vision. And I think that his testimony, if you will, would be beneficial for a lot of Jewish people, specifically in the Orthodox Jewish world. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the questions. Just Cool Productions asks, why do you use the name Yeshua instead of Jesus? I respect it, but why do you? Unlike a lot of people in the Messianic world, I was never afraid to say Jesus. I know that I mean no disrespect for anybody watching. Trust me, I really don't mean any disrespect. But in a lot of the circles that I've passed through, because I did visit different congregations trying to unite the community, I did notice that there are many people that everything is pagan. You know, The word Lord is pagan. Your sneakers are pagan. Your hairstyle is pagan. Jesus, that word is pagan. They say that it means Hail Zeus. I don't know where they're getting their Greek from, but clearly they're not Greek scholars and they don't know what that means. Jesus is the Greek version of Jesus. In Latin is the same, Jesus. So Jesus is just the English version of that. Jesus, Yeshu. Jesus, Jesus. They don't have a J sound. So I have no problem with saying the word Jesus, but I know that his name, as it was said in Hebrew and Aramaic, was Yeshua. There's plenty of scholarship to back that up, and I'm sure anybody watching knows this. So the reason why I personally like to use the name Yeshua is because that was his name and that's what he was called while here on earth. However, the same way that, for example, I live in Japan now. My name is in Spanish, right? This is what my parents called me when I was born, was Daniel, Spanish. If somebody is an English speaker and they say my name, they'll say Daniel. But here in Japan, they'll say Daniel. Do I mind what they call me in any one of those? No, because I understand that's their language, right? Specifically in Japan, this is something that people have to be sensitive about, is the fact that they simply don't have the same sounds that you have in English. So they don't have an L sound to finish a word. Everything has to be like a syllable with a consonant and a vowel. So instead of saying it'll be r. For example, Google. If you say Google in Japanese, it's guguru. You can't say Google because they just don't have those sounds. All of that to say that I can say Jesus, I can say Jesus, I can say Yeshua, but I just feel more comfortable saying Yeshua just because I know that's what he was actually called, and because I've just simply gotten used to it after saying it for so many years. Let me go back to the question, see what you guys have. Just Cool Production says it is 8:11 a.m. Wow, good morning. Let's see what else we have. Florida Huntsman is actually in Austin, Texas. I used to live in Austin and I loved Austin. Back in the day, I used to be vegan. I'm not vegan anymore. But they have really good vegan food in Austin. The sites are beautiful. For anybody who knows about Austin, if you go to Mount Bonnell, I really, really love that place. Mount Bonnell has this beautiful cliff, and in front of it is the river, and it's just a beautiful place to be in. I would go there either by myself or with friends and just stay there by the edge and admiring the beauty, and the best thing to do is just watch the sunsets there. Amazing. So yeah, you're in Austin, and you said you moved to Texas 4 years ago, and it's 7 a.m. Good morning to you also. Let's see what else. Florida Huntsman says, just cool, awesome sauce. And then I have a hard time explaining. Hold on, I can barely see. The screen is right in front of me. But it says, I have a hard time explaining to Christianity why I don't use the term. Going to check that out today. Thank you, Achi. So yeah, I guess that you're talking about the name Yeshua, perhaps. I don't know if that's what you were referring to, but yes, that's why I like to use the name Yeshua. But again, I have no problem with saying Jesus. That's just the English way of saying the name. If I'm speaking to a Spanish speaker, I might say Yeshua also, just because we can say those sounds. But I'm not afraid of using Jesus in that scenario. And again, I live in Japan. So the way that it's saying in Japan, it's also Yesu, Yesu, not Jesus with an S at the end, because again, in Japanese, you have to have the consonant and a vowel. The only time that doesn't happen is if a word ends with the letter N, like botan, which means button. It's an Anglicized Japanese word. I'm trying to think of another one. Oh, like melon. Melon is a word that's not a Japanese word, but when you say melon in Japanese, you would say meron. So the L sound turns into an R sound. It's like a half R, half L, and it's pronounced meron. And that's the only time that you have that sound at the end of a word. All right, let's continue. We have Denise saying, Shabbat Shalom, just saw you on YouTube in New York City, 8 a.m. Wow. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually from New York as well. So hello to you, Denise. That's amazing. I miss New York. I know that right now it's not doing so well. I'm actually from the Bronx, and I miss going to New York. It's been a long time. I think the last time I was in New York was for a wedding for a friend of mine. And that must have been like 2014, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, shalom, shalom to you. Shabbat shalom. And again, for those of you that are just joining in right now here in Japan, is actually Shabbat already ended. Right now is actually the first day of the week, even though it's still technically Saturday. So Shavua Tov, which means good week. Let's continue with the questions or comments. Just Cool Production says, what do you think about the Novus Ordo Mass and Vatican II? For those of you who are not familiar with what this is first of all, a little background. I am Jewish. I am a Torah observant Jew, which means that I live according to a halachically Jewish lifestyle. But under the lens of Messiah. I don't do it because I think it makes me more special than anyone, but rather because these are the traditions of my fathers. This is my heritage, and I feel that I am called to live as a Jew within the church. However, I want to live, and I am pursuing a Orthodox Catholic lifestyle. So that's why Just Cool Productions is asking about the Novus Ordo, which is basically the new order, basically the new style of the Mass within the Catholic Church. There's different rites, different cultural groups within Catholicism, like the Coptics, you have the Greeks, you have the Ethiopians, and they have just a slightly different flavor of the Catholicism liturgy for the Mass. But the Novus Ordo is basically the revamped or newer version of the Roman rite. So it was meant to be a little bit more inclusive, easier for people who are not used to the traditions of the Catholic Church. My honest opinion, as I know that it is a valid form of the Mass, I think there's not a problem if it's done with reverence and if it's done properly. For example, right now I've been attending a Catholic parish that is technically Novus Ordo, but you wouldn't know it because of the fact that the reason why it's Novus Ordo is because they're not using Latin. I'm in Japan, so they're using Japanese for their liturgy. And because Japan it has a long Catholic history, but it was canceled out for a long time and then it's coming back. And because of that, the people need to have it in Japanese, otherwise they have no idea what's going on. If you know anything about Japan, you would know that the culture here is very anti-religion, any religion, right? So the Novus Ordo works here. However, me personally, being a Jewish person, I see a closer tie to ancient Judaism and the Tridentine Mass, the Latin style that is done within the traditional Latin Mass. So personally, I like the Latin Mass more. I also have a connection to the Byzantine Rite because they are also very traditional. And I love tradition. I love beauty. I'm a person that really, truly believes in the importance of beauty and service. And this comes from a Jewish concept, which in English, we call it beautifying the commandments. For some reason right now, the Hebrew is escaping my mind. But beautifying the commandments is a concept within Judaism that basically means that there is a form of doing a commandment for God, right? God says do this and you do it. But beautifying the commandment means I'm going to do it with my whole heart, so I'm going to make it as beautiful as I can. And I'll speak on this a little bit later. I've had plans about explaining this within Catholicism. And the reason why it's done, it's to really show your love for God. And this comes back to the words of the Mashiach as well, where Yeshua says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. A lot of people feel like obeying God and following the commandments is like a checklist. Yeah, I did this, I did this, I did this. But their heart is not in it. It's quite robotic. So beautifying the commandment is kind of like a battle against that, putting your all into it to do your best. That all to respond to your question, what do I think of the Novus Ordo? As for Vatican II, I know that the documents themselves have been guarded by the Ruach HaKodesh, because that is a promise from Yeshua that says that the gates of hell will not prevail against his church. And if anyone believes that the teachings of the church have indeed been infiltrated in such a way, then you're not believing in the words of Yeshua. However, when put into practice, there's a very high chance that the people have done wrong with what Vatican II has allowed, at least according to their interpretation, if that makes sense. Basically, God can give you some good law, and you can twist it in your own way, and it ends up looking not like what God intended. An example of that is the Shabbat. For example, if we look the stories of Yeshua during Shabbat, and people criticizing the Messiah because he was healing on Shabbat. If you know the Torah, you know that there is nothing wrong against healing, because that is a priority, right? Within Torah, life is a priority. And many people now know that if you had to break the Shabbat for the sake of, let's say, saving a life, if you're a doctor, then it's absolutely permissible and actually commanded that you prioritize life over, let's say, I'm not going to heal this person because it's the Shabbat. So when it comes to the Vatican II documents, I believe that there's the right way to observe them, to observe the documents, but perhaps some people have twisted it to think maybe we should do things this way, and it's actually not the heart of what it's supposed to be. Whew, that was long-winded. Let me go back in here real quick. Wow, now I don't even know where I am. You guys actually commented a lot more than I expected. Florida Huntsman said, Christian as the term to identify myself. Sorry, by the way, if I'm getting super close to the mic. If I get too loud, you guys can let me know. How do you explain that to Christians? As a way to identify yourself, like what term you use. Yeah, you know, I made a video about this a while back called Why I Hate Labels. And the funny story behind that is because for a while, I was afraid to use the term Christian to identify myself, because I myself got caught up in that community that, you know, everything was pagan, and using the term Christian was a taboo. But the reality is that when you look into scripture, that's what the followers of Yeshua were called, Christians. That's what they were called in Antioch. The actual word, because it was in Greek, it was Cristianos, which is basically the same thing in Spanish as well. And some people say that it was supposed to be a derogatory term, that it was kind of a term of disrespect, but then the Christians adopted it. Believers in Yeshua adopted that term. And that's why I have no problem using that term. So how do I identify myself to other people? I guess it depends who I'm talking to. But now, because I am pursuing an Orthodox Catholic lifestyle, there are some terms that I like to use for myself. Christian is just fine, but I also like the terms Hebrew Catholic or Jewish Catholic. I also don't mind being called a Messianic Jew, because I am that. And at least according to my definition of the term, Messianic Jew just simply means a Jewish person that believes that Yeshua is indeed who he says he is, who He's the Son of God and Mashiach. So that's what I believe, 4 terms at least for myself. Let's continue. Amos says, Shavua Tov from Jakarta. Wow, amazing. Shavua Tov to you. Let's see. Continue. Denise says, from North Carolina, but you're right. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. North Carolina. I've never been, but I'd like to. I mean, there's so many states in the States that I just have not been to. Since I was born in New York, I really remained mostly in the East Coast. I remember I had to do a drive all the way from New York down to Texas, because I lived in Texas for a while. I lived in Denver, Colorado for a little bit. I didn't live in, but I have been many times to California, New Mexico, because I also had to drive from Denver. So that means I went, I think, New Mexico, Arizona. I've been to Nevada. I've been to Florida. Yeah, just pretty much the East Coast. I really haven't been in the middle of the States or the North. So there's that. Channel 1 says, greetings from the Messianic Channel 1. Greetings to you and to anyone who is watching from Channel 1. Just Cool Production says, I prefer the Tridentine Mass, but I like the Novus Ordo also. Yeah, I feel you there. Daughter of Elion, God bless you. I think we're going to have to do a Zoom chat one day, because I know that you have an interesting story. I've been seeing a little bit of your Instagram, and it looks really cool, and I think you have a good story to share. But let me just read the comment. It says, God bless from New Zealand. Would love to learn about why the Pope is called the Holy Father, and if it is biblical or Jewish history. I'm so tempted to answer that question fully now, but that's what the point of the video that I'm making tomorrow is all about. Again, for those of you that are just joining now, the video that I'm going to be making tomorrow is titled, The Pope, a Father to the People. Because I'm going to be making a video about that, I can just tell you off the bat right now that this is a biblical concept. I wouldn't be talking about it otherwise. But stay tuned, because I think it's going to be pretty good. Of course, I'm sure 100% somebody's going to be saying, heretic, no, he's an idol, this, blah, 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 blah. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. That's what I don't know why a lot of people think that just because I'm speaking my voice and talking about these things in YouTube that I'm trying to convince you to believe what I believe. I'm really not. I'm just presenting my journey, presenting what I see, and if people like it, they do. If you don't like it, then don't watch. I don't mean to sound mean, but that's the reality of being in social media. I get attacked literally on a daily basis, and it really gets old. So I just started adopting this habit of people who attack, and if they don't, it's fine with me if you disagree. I have no problem with it. I have no problem if you come with questions. I have no problem if you even wanted to debate, as long as it's done in a civil manner. But as soon as things turn into attacks or just bombardment of comment after comment without having a proper conversation, I've adopted the habit of just delete. I have no reason why to waste my time. But yeah, that video is coming tomorrow. Well, let's see, Denise talking to Florida Huntman. And let's see, Channel 1 says, you're not abandoned in Japan. Just joined the Messianic Jewish Fellowship International. Blah, 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 blah. No, yeah, I've been to Messianic congregations here in Japan. I know that that's not a problem. But for those of you that don't know, I'm actually pursuing an Orthodox Catholic lifestyle. And there's many reasons why. I think the best way to see my journey in this sense is I created a playlist called The New Covenant. Watch that so you can see when I publicly started to address these things that I have been talking about in my mind and studying and researching and praying about and fasting about. But the short of my story is my heritage is Jewish. My parents raised me for my childhood as a Pentecostal Christian. Later, I started pursuing a Torah-based lifestyle as a Messianic Jew, if you will. But as of, I guess, the past 2 years, I've been really pursuing Catholicism, although intentionally it was research done intended to debunk the church. But lo and behold, I was confronted with the hard fact that the Catholic Church is indeed the church started by Mashiach. And I'm not going to debate about it right now, but that's basically where the channel has been going. So if you're watching, and if you watched any of my content before, you'll know this. But if you're new, you can go to my playlist called The New Covenant, and you can see where I started addressing these topics, and then my later videos as well. That's basically what those are about. Continuing, Florida Huntsman says, that's addressed to daughter of Elohim, although it's, I think, daughter of El Elyon. Okay, he says, muy bien, hermano, I understand you, and oh yeah, exciting, I can't wait for the video. Excellent. All right, guys, I think I got to the bottom of the questions, but if you have more questions, shoot them at me. It could be literally about anything. I wanted to make this live stream because in Instagram and on the YouTube community page, I had made a post, as I've been making lately, just asking you guys what video you'd like to see next. And in this last time, I asked you all if you wanted to make a video that was just a free-for-all, a live stream like we're doing right now, or if you wanted me to do that title, The Pope, a Father to the People. The majority of everybody responded and saying that they wanted that one. But since I saw that some people also wanted this video, I decided to do it now, even though it was kind of without warning. But here I am, and I'm ready to take questions. We can speak about anything. But right now, I need a sip because after talking so much, my throat is killing me. Hold on. Just to update you all right now, it is 9:34 here in Japan, PM. I know that many of you, it's morning time right now, actually. All right, we got more questions. Let's see. Channel 1 says, God bless your work, and thank you for being so kind and open. Thank you. You know what's really good? And one of the things that I appreciate, I've had this channel since 2017, I believe. And although, like I mentioned before, I've been attacked basically on a daily basis, if not weekly. But after telling people that I am pursuing a Catholic Orthodox lifestyle, though walking according to Torah, if you didn't know you could do that, you can. Anyway, after revealing that, I have received even more attacks than before, but it's always so nice when I get people who are like, you know what, we disagree, but we love Yeshua and we love God and we want to just serve him and we want to live in a way that shows the light of Mashiach through love. Now, don't get me wrong. When it comes to sin, we reject sin. When it comes to differences that are against the ways of God, we reject those things, but we still treat other people with love and respect because that's what Yeshua called us to do. He said, you know what, if you love your enemy, that's the real deal, right? That's what he wants you to do. But if you love only your friends, don't the pagans do the same? So let's love each other even if we disagree. So Channel 1, thank you for being kind. Just Cool Production says, what do you think about the charismatic Catholic movement? I don't like it, but the Pope has no problem with it. I can't say I'm too familiar with it, but just to give you a synopsis of my mentality, because I come from a Jewish background and I love tradition, obviously, as I live like a Jew, even though that I'm pursuing to be in full communion in the church, I love tradition. I think it's so important. And I think one of the reasons why lately, millennial generation, Gen Z, the reason why they're always so depressed and why they hate family gatherings and they want to be so socially distanced is because of the fact that they're not brought up in tradition because everything has become a fad, right? You're just living from the next thing to the next thing. Just to give you a little example and not to make myself sound old. But back in my day, When I would listen to music when an album came out, I would listen to the whole album on repeat. I would memorize the words. Now, new songs come by artists like every other week. You don't ever get to memorize the lyrics for a song. Not that I listen to those things anymore, but just to give you an idea of how society is now. It's very anti-tradition. At least that's what's being pushed out, right? But there's a beautiful thing happening, a beautiful movement, which is kind of this hunger and thirst for tradition, especially amongst young Catholics, where even though the Novus Ordo gets pushed and this charismatic movement to seem more Protestant gets pushed, many young people are like, you know what? I'd rather have something with richness and authenticity and a historical pedigree. So they end up going to the more traditional things like the Byzantine Rite or the TLM, the traditional Latin Mass. Let's continue. Next question comes from the Florida Huntsman. How hard is it for you to follow kosher food in Japan? It's really not that hard. There is a Jewish community, especially in Tokyo. There's one in Osaka as well. But it's not really that hard. It depends also your definition of kosher. If kashrut, kosher, to you means the biblical standard, I have no problem with it. If it means the rabbinical way, like for example, not mixing cheese and meat, if it means that animals have to be slaughtered a certain way or that certain products have to be supervised by a rabbi, that doesn't happen in every case. And that's something that's added later on into the tradition of Judaism. So I don't necessarily hold that to the strict sense, but I do follow a kosher diet, if you will, according to what we see in the written Torah and most of what is seen in writings like the Mishnah. But it's not that hard in Japan. Japan is a very clean and super clean culture, just in general. Like if you see the way that they operate, and if you've been to Japan, you'll see this is like the cleanest place. I'm coming from New York, right, where I would see garbage in the streets. I was so shocked that literally everywhere I go, even big cities, Tokyo, where I live, you look in the streets, spotless. It's just amazing. I love this place. Anyway, let's continue. Blah blah says hi, hello to you, and let's see who else that are really on. It's amazing, even that when the influence of your videos, I've shared about Mary, the Ark of the New Covenant, my church as the church is a fulfillment that Jesus started. My friends deny it, and it has gotten me. Hold on, and have gotten at me and said that I need to rebuke and stick to the Bible and Jesus. So I definitely relate to the people attacking you. I am simply following Christ, partaking in his church. By the way, I have my computer in front of me, but it's a little dim here. You can't see it because I really changed the settings on my computer. I bumped the ISO so that it looks bright, but in reality, I can barely see what I have in front of me right here. I just brightened it a little bit. But basically, I was just reading the comment by daughter of El Elyon, basically saying that she relates to my situation in that, you know, we've been going through a faith journey. I know that she has as well. And there are many people that when you change your views because you are confronted with facts, that people treat you without love a lot of times, at least for me. Sometimes they just attack you and they're so sure that they're right that they're like, oh no, what you believe is heresy, you're in the wrong, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people have that tendency, and it's hard to combat that because at the end of the day, people will believe what they want to believe. Doesn't matter what the facts are. And just as a perfect example, I've had this in my own family where, for example, when I started living according to the Torah, I faced a lot of hate from the community that I was in. They treated me like a leper, even though I used to have a position within that congregation. And I just got treated really, really badly. And even now, again, especially within the Hebrew roots and Messianic movements, there were so many people that were just like, oh man, you're backtracking, you're going to the whore of Babylon. Why are you following the Pope? He's an idol. It's evil. The Catholic Church, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you present them with facts. They're going to believe what they want to believe. That's why I always tell everyone, this channel and the purpose of it is for me to share my story. If you relate, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's awesome. As long as you are not disrespectful, we can talk and chat. But we do it civilly, because at the end of the day, none of us can pretend to know everything, right? I was certain of the lifestyle that I was living, but even then I was not attacking anyone and saying, you're wrong, you're going to hell. What's the point? You know, that doesn't help anyone. And I think the people that do that sincerely just must be having something wrong going in their lives. Maybe they're just projecting something that is wrong within them. So I don't stress about it. And daughter of El Elyon, I hope that you don't let it get to you too much. I know it's hard, but like you said, we're just following the truth. We just love God and we want to live according to the way that He wants us to live, right? None of us are perfect. Only He is. That's why we're trying to pursue His truth and seek His ways. And like He says, knock and the door will be open. And He says, ask and it will be answered. So I believe the words of the Mashiach. I believe my God when He says to seek Him. And that's what we're doing, right? Continuing with the comments. Another comment from daughter of Leon. I still love it how Christ created and started the church, not the Bible. Like He did not come and He didn't write it down, right? No, He created the church, and and through it we have God-breathed scripture. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's basically the big debate between the Protestant movements and the Catholic Church and even the Orthodox Church, which is it's like the argument of what came first, the chicken or the egg. So what came first, the Bible as we know it now, or the church? It's actually the church. A lot of people might have problems with that, but that's how it happened. Yeshua never said, write my words. That's just what His disciples did. And the New Testament, for example, didn't exist until way later on when all the books were compiled. I think it was around the 300s when that happened. So yeah, that's one of another one of the great discoveries that I made. But I knew, like for example, for anybody who's watching, obviously, since I'm pursuing a Orthodox Catholic lifestyle, I reject completely the concept and teaching of sola scriptura, which is the scripture alone. Even that phrase right there has different definitions according to what Protestant chain you talk to. But basically what it means is that the Bible is the only infallible authority for a believer in Yeshua. So what happened to the people that were living before it? It makes no sense, right? So that's basically the argument. But for a person like me who is a Jewish believer, I already knew that sola scriptura was nothing to believe, because from the beginning, from the times of Moshe, God gave the written, right? He wrote the commandments in the tablets of stone. But then later He also gives us the Levi'im, the Kohanim, the judges. And He says that we're supposed to obey whatever they say and to not to turn to the left or to the right. I've spoken about this in another video where it says it's according to Judges 17. Watch that video if you haven't. And there's another one that I just spoke about, my latest video, which is why the priesthood still matters, right? It's called The Priesthood Still Matters. And I basically talk about the fact that the authorities that God gave us are supposed to be followed, right? God didn't set up a system arbitrarily or for no reason. Let's continue. Just Cool Production says, is the church able to change the Bible? If you mean the church, not No, of course not. We can't change the Bibles. It's already written. We have the sources. So of course not. I know that there's cults out there that have changed what, like they take the translations and translate it with a specific bias, like the Jehovah's Witness, for example. Let's continue. Y esposa y mamá católica. Buenos días. Good morning. Good morning to everyone. God bless you all. Good day, Daniel, to you and your family. Buenos dias. Well, good night from Japan, and shalom, shalom to you. Just Cool Production says I'm buffering badly. You know what? My Wi-Fi can sometimes get a little bit glitchy, so I apologize if this starts acting really weird and if it gets choppy. Hopefully, if you watch this video again and if you watch the already recorded version, hopefully it doesn't do that. But I apologize. Just my Wi-Fi is not the greatest. Let's continue. Okay, so hija, esposa y mamá católica says saludos desde Tennessee. Awesome. So many people from everywhere. Isn't this great? That's one of the good things about technology. We're literally all over the world right now. We have somebody from Jakarta. We have people from the States. We have people from New Zealand. And I'm over here in Japan. And we're all together right now in this video. So thank you all for being here. Again, this is just a little random live stream that I wanted to do. So if you all have any questions, any comments, let's share them. Let's talk about anything. Literally any topic is game. Will I have a good answer for your questions? We don't know that until I check the question. But I'm here to do my best and just to chat with you all. Continuing, we see that Florida Huntsman says, in Texas, particularly in Austin, we have a lot of transgender and gay coworkers. I don't shun them. Hold on a second. Let me get really close. Well, I'm friends as far as work goes. I am conflicted with and how Messiah would address them. Well, we know that Yeshua still loved the people in sin because we're all in sin. The scriptures tell us that he who thinks that he is free of sin is a fool, right? None of us are free of sin. We all sin in some way, perhaps mortally or perhaps in a lesser sense, but we all have faults. That's why we need the Mashiach. That's why we need his atoning sacrifice. That's why we need to seek reconciliation. However, I completely understand, how tough it must be, especially when society nowadays is pushing this so hard on everyone, like the pronouns thing, whatever. You know what topic I'm talking about. Personally, this is how I feel about it. And this is something that I'm telling you because I've done it and this is how I've lived it. You treat everyone with respect, with dignity, and with love, because of the fact that we're all made in the image of God. And that is what gives them value, not who they are as a person. Because there are people out there that genuinely can be foul human beings, right? As for someone who might be sinful in one way or another, I can't treat someone worse or with no love simply because they sin in a different way than someone else or even than myself. However, it doesn't mean that we condone the sin. For example, I had a friend of mine who saw herself in a specific category of attraction, right? To say it in a cleaned up way. And she knew exactly how I believed. And she asked me once, so do you believe that I'm in sin? And I said, yeah, if you continue to live in this lifestyle, but I do believe that there is forgiveness within the church, and I believe that with God you are able to be forgiven if you seek that forgiveness and you seek to turn away from your ways, right? Like Yeshua when he was speaking to the prostitute, right? Or the not prostitute, the girl that got caught in adultery, right? She was there and he said, does anyone condemn you? No, nobody's condemning you, and I don't condemn you either. But then he says, leave, go on, and sin no more. Right? God knows we can sin, obviously, but we also know that God forgives. So because of that, we don't attack the people, we don't treat them ill, but we still speak the truth, because truth is part of love. Even if it hurts, it's part of love, right? Like when you're a kid, maybe you hate veggies, but your parents feed them to you anyway because you need it, because they love you and they want you to have health, so they'll feed you that, right? So sometimes we have to give somebody the broccoli that they don't want to eat, the truth, because it's good for them, right? But we still treat them with love. Children are a perfect example of this. There are people that try to discipline their children and they're really stern, and the children either don't respond to that stern behavior or are just simply afraid of that parent because they're coming in with this aggressive attitude. However, if they see that you're really coming in love, even when you're stern, they can feel that and they know that, okay, you know what, my mommy or daddy are being really strong right now, but they're doing it in love. Kids can feel that, and they will follow along with your instructions. I know this from personal experience. Let's continue. By the way, really good stuff. Just Go Production says, is Mother Teresa a saint? Seem to encourage Hindus and Muslims to stay that way. 100% with you. I'm not too familiar with Mother Teresa's background, so I can't say. Continuing, hija, esposa y mamá católica. Now that you say any questions, so my next door neighbor, hold on again, I'm going to move closer to this camera. I mean, not to the camera, to the computer. And now that you say any question, so my next door neighbor, she is Messianic from a congregation that was founded about 7 years ago. She taught that the name of Jesus is not the way you say it. She says that it is Yeshua and not Yeshua. What do you mean? Can you explain what's going on? Why does Rose say it's wrong to say Yeshua? Hold on 1 second. Let me get closer so I can see. It's hard to understand what you're saying. You're saying that she says, your neighbor says that Yeshua's name is not Yeshua, but it is Yeshua. Perhaps you're saying the intonation. Like, for example, okay, so we know, for those of you that don't know, the word or the name Yeshua is the Hebrew term Yeshua. Yeshua means salvation. And from Yeshua, you also get the name Yeshua, which is how you would say the name of the Messiah. Okay, so you said with an A, not with an E. Okay. Now I know what you're saying. Your neighbor says that it's pronounced Yahshua instead of Yeshua. This comes from faulty Hebrew. Because, so this whole idea comes from the fact that when people see the word hallelujah, which in Hebrew it's written with a yod and a hey, that's the two letters, yod, hey. It says hallelujah. People think that because of Yah with yod and hey, that means that Yeshua, since it starts with a similar sound, it should be pronounced Yahshua. But that's just faulty Hebrew. Perfect example, if you look at any name in the Bible where the word or the name of God begins or ends a name, when it begins the name is Yeh or Yeho, and when it ends a word, it's Yah. I'll give you an example. Yeshayahu, or no, Yehoshua is the example, right? So you have Yehoshua or Joshua. It still uses that same style, Yud Hey, which means Yeho, from the name of God. Not Yah. It's not Yahoshua. It's Yehoshua. But when it's put Yod Hey in the end of a name, it's Yehu, like Matit Yahu or Eliyahu, right? Or Eliyahu, if you say it in the Sephardic way of pronouncing it. They don't really say the U sound at the end. That's where you actually get Eliah or Eliah or Elias, right? So basically, that's just faulty Hebrew. And it really breaks my heart that there's so many people that just they learn their Hebrew from Google and from not just Google, because you can obviously find real Hebrew in the internet. But a lot of people just get educated by people that really don't know any Hebrew, and this is like basics. I'm not fluent in Hebrew, but I can tell you enough of this, and any scholar, any serious scholar will tell you the same. Continuing, Just Cool Production says, I also got stuck in the sacred name movement calling Jesus Yahshua. Yeah, it happens a lot. Just like with the name of God, like how do you pronounce the Hebrew letters Yud Hey Vav Hey? There's many iterations, and people fight over this, man. Like literally, there's nobody that can 100% tell you what it is. I personally, after doing the research that I've done, I've come to a personal conclusion of what I think the name is. I don't say it to anyone out loud. At least I've never said it to anyone because of the fact that I believe that the name of God is too holy to throw around, especially in the internet. But if people pronounce it a different way, that's, their situation. There's no reason to be fighting over things like that. Continuing, Jaco says, what do you think about Kabbalah? For anyone who's not familiar with Kabbalah, Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, which basically means enlightenment. Kabbalah. How do I feel about it? I think it's not for everyone. I have no problem with looking at Torah in a different, more mystical level, because if you look at the Brit Hadashah, even Shaul, Paul, used to talk about Torah in a deep sense and almost often in a mystical sense, right? So it's good to look at the four levels of studying the scriptures. But I think some people get carried away with Kabbalah and become crazy. As a matter of fact, a lot of the sages would say that there is like a warning, right, that goes against studying Kabbalah, that if you're not stable enough mentally and spiritually, you can end up going crazy. And now everybody thinks, oh, I can handle it. They start doing a little bit of research on the internet and they think that they're Kabbalah masters. So, I mean, if you want to dig into the studies a little bit deeper, may the Ruach HaKodesh guide you. Is it necessary? No. Can the regular people around the world get a deeper insight that might perhaps inspire them in their walk? I think so. I think, for example, for me, I've gleaned and seen benefits within certain studies of Kabbalah. But yeah, that's as deep as I can go with that right now. Continuing, Just Cool Production says, what do you think about the Eastern Orthodox Church? So I made a video, and I added actually 2 videos. That it was my first 2 interviews with my friend Dustin Quick. He has a YouTube channel called Holy Smokes, Cigars, Catholicism, and Conversation. Check him out. He's amazing. He looks at Catholicism as well as I do from a Hebraic standpoint. Really good stuff. And he has a lot of amazing interviews with amazing people, far more knowledgeable than myself in certain topics. So yeah. But anyway, in one of the videos, we speak about why I don't align myself with the Eastern Orthodox Church. And it actually has to do a lot with authority, particularly the Pope, right? The Orthodox Church is not a unified church. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of ill communication. For example, I believe there's the Russian Orthodox are having a lot of trouble with the church in Constantinople. It's not a unified church. So that and a lot of doctrinal things, even within church to church, that was a big turnoff for me, because Yeshua says that his church is one, that his body is one. I won't dive into it now, but perhaps tomorrow's video will show why it is that I don't line up with the Eastern Orthodox Church. However, I do understand and acknowledge that they do have valid holy orders, and that they have beautiful tradition, and that they have many beautiful things. I just don't agree with their structure per se. But yeah, I have no problems with them. I actually have a viewer here that always comments that he used to be part of the Messianic Jewish movement, but now he is Eastern Orthodox, and I appreciate him, and I love when he supports my videos, coming from an anti-Protestant, not anti-Protestant, but like helping to debate against the arguments that a lot of Protestant folks try to make against what I post. All right, so I'm trying to see where we are. Okay, so hija esposa and Mama Católica says yes, she said that too. Just Cool Production says Yeshua didn't exist prior to the 1930s. That's a fact. When the Sacred Name movement came to be. That's true, exactly. Yes, thank you for the explanation. And Just Cool Production says Kabbalah denies the Trinity. It doesn't deny the Trinity. It just has a different way of viewing God. Again, this is why Kabbalah is something that I don't promote. That's a way to put it. I don't promote it because everybody gets different understandings, and whoever says to me that, oh, Kabbalah teaches this or teaches that, I immediately knock it off, because unless you literally have been studying it hardcore all your life, you really don't know about Kabbalah. And I say that even about myself. I know certain things. I read a lot within the Zohar and other Kabbalistic writings, and I have learned, but I can in no way claim to be knowledgeable in Kabbalah. If that makes sense. Let's see. Hija Esposa y Mama Católica says, she also says that the book of Maccabees is Kabbalismo. She explained it to me, and that the book is very evil, and that you shouldn't read it. I am a born and raised Roman Apostolic Catholic. I have begun reading the Bible more in depth with the daily readings, even with Finance on 365. Reading the Bible, so I'm learning. I read so far the first chapter and the second from the first Maccabees and didn't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, okay, so a long time ago, when I didn't know about the Deuterocanonical books, or what many Protestants call the Apocrypha, I didn't even know those books existed. But a while back, I got myself a Bible, which I actually have another one of it. So let me pull it up right here. Sorry about that. I'm really into Bible translations. I like looking at the Hebrew, the Greek, the Aramaic, but I also love seeing different English versions, just to see how people in the English-speaking world might interpret a word. So a long time ago, I got myself another one of these exact same Bibles. Let me see if it'll actually focus. There you go. I don't know if you guys can see it the right way, or if this flipped it, but this is the Cambridge Paragraph Bible, and it's a King James version, but it also contains the Apocrypha, or the Deuterocanonical books. They're squeezed in between the Tanakh and the Brit Hadashah, the Old Testament and the New. And from that, I was like, wait a second. So even the King James version has these books, and they were part of the Bible for over 1,000 years, and it got me curious. But then I left it to the side, except that the fact that being a Jewish believer and living in the Messianic world, I kept Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a a feast that I love, right? So when I was looking at these things, I'm like, okay, we have basically no story of Hanukkah. Where does it come from? Oh, wait, the book of Maccabees, 1 and 2. They're about, these are the guys, these are the Maccabees, and I was like, why are they not in the scriptures? Long story short, now I believe 100% that these books are part of the canon. That's what was determined even within the Catholic Church, and they've been there for a while. A lot of people say that they weren't part of the Bible until way later on. False. They just didn't need to be addressed as canon until after the Reformation, when people were saying that they were not inspired. But obviously, there's scripture. There's many beautiful things. If you look at the book of Sirach, you will see so much wisdom. But anyway, all of these books, they have either history or just knowledge that is really good. But I personally understand, and I agree with the Catholic Church in the belief that these Deuterocanonical books / Apocrypha are indeed part of the canon. They are scripture, and they are inspired books. And I think that if you have a Protestant Bible that is missing those 7 books, get yourself a Catholic Bible and take advantage of those beautiful writings. So, actually, just to address that, my latest contribution to my library is this guy right here, which is it's an ESV translation. It's a Catholic edition. So that means that the Apocrypha or the Deuterocanonical books are here. It's a beautiful Bible. It's well made, and I am in love with this one. All right, let's continue down in the comments and see what we see. Okay, so we have another saint. Is there a difference between Hebrew roots and Messianic Judaism? Is there a big difference between Protestants and Messianics? So let's address the first question. Is there a difference between Hebrew roots and Messianic Judaism? Because both of them really come from the heart of Protestantism, I will tell you right off the bat that there is no such thing as a single universal Hebrew roots or Messianic movement. There's different versions of them. For example, but I'll give you the general 2 examples. The majority of people within the Hebrew roots movement are people of Gentile background, meaning they are not Jewish in heritage. The majority, and I can tell you this from personal experience, I've been to so many congregations within both movements, and this is what I saw. But to summarize the beliefs of the Hebrew roots movement, they believe that the Bible is God-breathed. Of course, only the Protestant scriptures, right? They believe that the whole word of God is valid and true. They believe Yeshua is the Messiah, and they believe, again, this is generally speaking, that we should live according to Torah as it is seen in the 5 books of Moshe, in the Torah, right? Where it differs from Messianic Judaism most of the time, again, this is general, is the fact that Messianic Judaism comes in with a flavor of Judaism, which means a lot of people might be wearing kippot, or kippah, or yarmulke, depending on, if you speak Yiddish. Within the Hebrew roots movement, they are completely fine wearing tzitziot, which are the tasseled garment. They might tie it in their belt loops, whereas in the Messianic Jewish movement, they might use it more in the traditional Jewish sense, which is you wear the tasseled garment as in the versions of the talit katan and the talit gadol. The talit katan is a small talit which you wear under your clothing like a poncho, and on the 4 corners of this little poncho you would have the tassels or the tzitziot. And the talit gadol, which is the big talit, that one has it's like the prayer shawl that many people know. So again, Messianic Judaism holds on to the traditions of Judaism. They do Erev Shabbat, which is the initiation of Shabbat. They do Havdalah, which is the closing of Havdalah. They celebrate Hanukkah. I'm trying to see. Even within the Messianic Jewish world, there are some people that are more rabbinic, some that are not. And what I mean by that is that some of them, for example, believe that the Bible is the only authority, and the other one that is more rabbinically oriented would believe things like the Mishnah is something that they should uphold. They read other Jewish literature and apply it to themselves. Some of them go as far as to digging into Kabbalah through the Zohar and other Kabbalistic writings. So that's that. The other question was, is there a big difference between Protestantism and Messianics? Well, the difference, man, it's hard to say. There's so many flavors of Protestantism, and I believe that at least a majority of Messianic Judaism, as it is known in the movement, generally speaking, is just a Jewish-flavored Protestant branch. I mean, no disrespect for that, but that's literally what it is. And I know that, at least from my personal experience, from the dozens and dozens of different synagogues and Messianic synagogues that I've been to. Continuing with the comments and questions, we have the Florida Huntsman that says, what about the book of Enoch? The book of Enoch, Enosh is actually the way that it's pronounced. Is it canon? No. Is it inspired? Probably. We see very almost verbatim quotations within the Brit Hadashah of the book of Enosh. So I think there's a lot of things in there that we should learn about, and I think that it's important to study these things. I don't know how much weight I'm willing to put on them because of the fact that we just simply don't have ancient enough manuscripts to validate everything within them. I know that there are two major manuscripts that have been found, but they're so far away from the dates that they claim to be from that there's really no way that I, at least personally, could equate them to the level in which the rest of the canon is at. Have I enjoyed reading it? Yeah, I have, and I think it's valuable, and I think it's good to be knowledgeable in it because it says a lot of things that we already see within the Brit Hadashah and the rest of the scriptures, and I think it gives a little bit of insight, if at all, at least of the mind of the people within that time period when it was written. Let me take another sip. Continuing. By the way, I really appreciate all of you that are here with me right now here in Japan. It is 10:15. So I appreciate you all joining me. I don't know what time it is for you all. I know that for many of you, it's the morning. I guess it must be like 9 a.m. for some of you. So thank you for your questions and keep shooting them. Let's keep talking. I love this time with you all. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to find myself. Okay, another sin says, should the book of Enoch be included in canon? I guess I already responded to that. Hija Esposa y Mamá Católica says, I recommend the Jerusalem Bible. It's really nice. Okay, so personally, my favorite versions, I still love the King James Version. Of course, I can't say that it's the greatest translation, especially for our times. And especially since we have better manuscripts now that we have found since the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I think my new favorite is this ESV Catholic version, but I do also enjoy the Complete Jewish Bible, the CJB, because it uses the Hebrew names for certain things, like instead of saying the Sabbath, it says Shabbat. Instead of saying Jerusalem, it says Yerushalayim. Instead of saying Jesus, it says Yeshua. It's just something that I personally like. It just really rings with me. But, if I guess the best way to put it is, somebody said this, the best Bible translation or the best Bible is the one that you'll actually read. So that's also true. Unless, of course, you're reading some random cultic Bible. as the ones we spoke about earlier. Continuing on, what do you think of the government church? What do you think of the government church? I'm not sure what you mean by that question. So if you could explain it a little bit, I could answer that better. Hija, esposa y mamá católica says, otra cosa, another thing. I mean, one time she mentioned that the people who study the moon and the stars are all satanic. But then her or maestro, teacher, is in the watch for it and talks about it, that it's necessary. I think what your friend is talking about is the difference between somebody who is an astrologist versus somebody who simply uses the star, moons, and the sun as a timepiece. The scriptures tell us that God placed the sun, the moon, and the stars, these heavenly bodies, as a way for us to determine the seasons, the moedim. God runs the world in a schedule. We know that in the feasts, the biblical feasts that we see in the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, those feasts depend completely on the timekeeping of what we see in the sky. The new months depend on, the sliver of the moon. So they're important. Where astrologists come in is believing in the power of the stars themselves. Even Judaism will tell you about this. In Kabbalah, for example, they believe that these heavenly bodies are not random fireballs, but that they actually are physical manifestations of spiritual beings, and that a lot of people used to seek these and make gods out of them. And that that going to that source is evil because it becomes idolatry, right? And idolatry is basically placing something else as if it was God instead of God himself. So I understand where your friend is coming along with that. Even the magi, the wise men, if you will, they use the stars to determine where the Mashiach when and where he would be. So that's not 100% wrong, but it's also just something to be aware of what she means in that sense. Continuing, let's see. Another sense says the Book of Enoch was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is what encouraged me to want to read it. We'll be ordering it soon. Cool. That's actually something that maybe I had heard it, but I just forgot about it. But again, I don't believe that it's part of the canon, but I think it's valuable and it would be good to read. So yeah, go ahead, read it, but do it prayerfully under the guidance of the Ruach HaKodesh. And just remember that if the church didn't call it canon, it was under the guidance of the Ruach HaKodesh as well. Okay. Another saint says it's 8 a.m. in Houston, Texas. Hey, I lived in Houston myself. Next is, again, from Hija Esposa y Mamá Católica. The Bible is Catholic. It's old version, I think. I don't recall. Muy bien. No sabía. She didn't explain more, so I was like, huh? Okay, next one. Disco Productions. Why does the Pope pray with other religions? Man, don't get me started with that. I don't know why it gets tolerated, but I understand what the purpose was. Is this whole issue of being ecumenical or being social and friendly with other beliefs. Not in the sense that the Catholic Church agrees with them, but rather to seek a way to build bridges and start communication. Look at it this way. How do you bring other people into the belief of the true God and to his Mashiach, Yeshua, who is, God manifested in the flesh? How do you bring those people who come from pagan backgrounds to you if you disrespect their culture? For example, right now that I live in Japan, and if I start disrespecting their culture, they're not even going to listen to me. It doesn't matter with what facts I come with. So I understand that factor. However, I think there's a line with praying with them. They're praying to false gods, right? There is only one God. So I can't say that those actions are right. I understand what the purpose might have been, but the delivery, I can't say I agree with. So yeah, it's just something to be careful with. A good example is this. I went to a Chabad, I think it was for Yom Kippur, a celebration for Yom Kippur with Chabad. So these are Orthodox Jews. And I know that they don't believe that Yeshua is Mashiach. I believe that Yeshua is Mashiach. But I still celebrated with them because this was a way to build a relationship with them. And I know that they do serve the same God as I do, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. They just don't have a full understanding of who God is through Mashiach, right? So I can understand where that feeling might come from, the necessity of building bridges with people of other beliefs, which is like this. It goes back to that thing that I spoke about before, that when you are talking to other people, even though they might be living a sinful lifestyle, we need to acknowledge that we are also not perfect, and we also need to acknowledge that to be able to reach these people, we cannot simply go attacking them. We have to treat them with love and respect and dignity, so that then we can build a relationship to the point that they would be willing to listen to us, if that makes sense. Again, it doesn't mean that I agree with the actions of that specific pontiff, but those are my 2 cents for that. All right, continuing. What do you think about the ISR Bible? I don't know what translation that is, to be honest, so I can't comment on that. Anthony De Rosa says, hey, glad to catch you still live. Hope all is well. What is your opinion on the church making the Sabbath Sunday? Does it make sense because rabbinical court declared Gentiles can't Saturn? Okay, that's a lot of unpacking to do, but I made a video that addresses this in a sense. If you go to the video that I made called The True Shabbat, go check that video out. But basically a synapse of it is the day itself is a shadow of who Yeshua really is. He is our Sabbath rest. Like every other feast that pointed to Yeshua, he's our Pesach lamb, he's our atoning sacrifice like Yom Kippur. He tabernacled with us like the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. The Ruach HaKodesh descended on the day of Pentecost. He was given to us the same way that in the original first Pentecost, the Torah was given to us in Mount Sinai. And Shabbat is exactly that. It points to who the Mashiach is. We have the substance, and I have no problem with observing or remembering the shadow, which is Shabbat, the day. But the real is Yeshua. He is the true Sabbath rest. But that's just a little snap. Perhaps I'll dig more into that video, into that topic in another video. But watch my video, The True Shabbat, and I speak a little bit more on that. All right, continuing. Another saint. What I mean by the government church is the church that applies for its 501c3 to be tax exempt. I don't know. Hold on. I thoroughly believe in the separation of church and state. I live in Japan, so we don't have that same system. But in the States, I know that that's a thing. I guess the way to put it is this. If working alongside with the government makes you contradict the truth or repress the truth, then don't do it. And I think that's wrong. If you are still bringing the truth somehow and you're not blocking the truth and you're not sugarcoating it, then I see no problem with being tax exempt. But that's just a general overview. I'm really not well versed on the tax code of the states, so I can't really speak on that. Truth Seeker says the Book of Enoch is in the canon of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church Bible. Yeah, it's true that they do hold it in their Bible. I'm actually not sure about the Eastern Orthodox. If any of you know, do the Eastern Orthodox have the Book of Enoch in their Bible? I'd be curious to know. I know they have even more books than the Catholic Church has, books that were added later on as part of their official canon, right? I'm not sure if they have that one, but I do know that the Ethiopian Church has that. Let's see. I kind of feel like they compromise with the world system. If you're referring back to that church thing, again, if they're compromising the truth, I don't agree. And another sense said Shabbat Shalom, by the way. Yeah. Shabbat Shalom to you and Shavuot Tov from Japan. Vatican II changed Catholicism, says the truth seeker. Again, as I mentioned before, I don't think that the documents themselves are incorrect, because to claim that would be to think that the Ruach HaKodesh is not protecting the teachings of the church, which would be incorrect, right? That would be an unorthodox point of view. However, like I mentioned before, the way that it has been delivered, at least in many geographic locations, I do agree that many have abused these documents and interpreted them in a way that has caused many issues. For example, what they call the circus circus masses, which is really sad to see. So I mean, that's just my view. I personally prefer more traditional Catholicism versus the Novus Ordo, but I do agree that there's this, that not every Novus Ordo Mass is irreverent, but some actually are. So that's where I draw the line, and I'm like, nope, I cannot accept that. God is to be taken seriously, and service to him must be reverent and done in spirit and in truth. All right, continuing. We go to, where are we actually? So many things over here. Hold on. Okay. Just Cool Production says, are Protestants heretics or separated brothers and sisters? Well, according to what we see throughout church writings, at least from what I've seen, I wouldn't say heretics as much as they are separated brothers and sisters, because, you know, in Protestantism, they hold the core value, for example, that there is but one God, that he is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that Yeshua is indeed the Messiah, Son of God, that we should uphold the scriptures, but they're missing part of the truth, which is, it goes back to also the way that I feel about Judaism today. I believe that there are many beautiful things that are true within Judaism, even Rabbinic Judaism, but they are, as Shaul said, partially blind. And Shaul said that all Israel would be partially blind, right? If Israel and the people of God are partially blind, that means within the Jews, which believe in God, they're partially blind. Protestants are partially blind. I think we all in some way might be missing some things, right? But I don't know if I would go as far as to call them heretics, especially when heretic means someone who knows the truth and denies it, versus someone who is just ignorant to a truth, or who don't understand a truth. I mean, no disrespect by that, but that's just my view in regards to that. Let's see, going back to Hija Esposa Mama Católica says, I think all Catholic parishes are tax exempt. I worked in the office 4 years ago, and it was so that they can buy all the church supplies and products without tax. That's all I know. Again, as long as it's not jeopardizing the truth, but if you compromise the truth, then, and you know what, we're getting closer and closer to the end days. So I know that there are some that are going to flake off from the truth, but many will hold on tight to the truth, right? So I hope that we can be counted amongst those who hold on to the truth of God and who truly seek him in spirit and in truth to serve him. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Anthony says, always great speaking with you. Thanks for the answers. You speak with truth and are genuine. God bless you and your journey. Anthony, I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And okay, I've said this before in my videos. I don't claim to be some know-it-all teacher. I don't even call myself a teacher, to be honest. But all I want to do with this channel is inspire people to seek for truth, the truth of God, to do it wholeheartedly and to be courageous enough to fix things within their life to align themselves to God if they see that there is, like, for example, let's say I'm walking in a path that I believe is true, but then I see that I'm actually incorrect in something. If you align yourself with that truth, I respect it. But people that just block themselves against the truth, they're only damaging themselves. And for me, at least personally, the way that I'm living my lifestyle, or the way that I want to live out my relationship with God, is God, show me your truth. And if I have error in my ways, correct me. It doesn't matter to me if it's painful, if it goes against my mentality. I don't want to be biased to my own ways. I want to follow where He wants to take me. A perfect example is the whole shift from Messianic Judaism and being raised as an anti-Catholic and now pursuing an Orthodox Catholic lifestyle. So yeah, again, thank you for that. And I pray that all of us as a community would seek to please God and not to be pretending that we're know-it-alls. You know what I mean? All right, let's continue. Anthony De Rosa says, and yes, the Slavonic book of Enoch is in some of the Eastern Orthodox. Okay. Some of the Eastern Orthodox. So not all of them. That's interesting. Actually, I want to know more about that. And you know what? After this video, probably I'll do a little bit more research on the Eastern Orthodox canon. Sounds interesting. Pala says, who is a wise man and endowed with knowledge among you? Let him shew on a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. Amen. Yeah, again, going back to what we were saying. I pray that all of us would seek the Almighty with a humble heart, knowing that none of us are perfect, none of us really know everything. But if we show, I know that if we really pursue God and are willing, that's the key. Because a lot of us think that we're seeking God with all of our heart. But are you willing to sacrifice beliefs that you hold dear to be like, man, I was actually in error, and then, arrange your path to be according to the way of God? I think that's the key. And that's what I seek to do. I want to be close to God. Man, my heart burns. Even right now as I'm speaking, like I just want to be with God. That's it. And I want to love God. I want to love people. And I want to inspire anyone that watches this channel to be like, yeah, you know what? I think I know things, but let me keep looking. I got to audit myself and my beliefs. As we continue, let's see. Here, Esposa y Mama Católica says, Protestants are separated and in their way to brethren. Okay. Lord Huntsman says, Muslims and Christians believe in the one true God. I believe embracing them, I think is what you mean. It says embarrassing, but I think embracing them is what you meant. Embracing them as familial, but not subscribing to their values, saints, or prophets after Yeshua. I treat them as believers, not as pagans. Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't agree with the Quran. I don't agree with the teachings of Muhammad. But I think that there are some things to be admired within certain Muslims. Like, for example, I have a couple of Muslim friends. One in particular comes to mind right now, that even though he's a Muslim, he's super kind-hearted, and he's just seeking to know God, right? He doesn't see what I see, and I don't see what he sees. But I pray for him. And I pray that the Almighty would reveal himself to him in a powerful way and show him the truth of the Mashiach. And I know that if he heard me right now, he might not agree with my views, but he knows that I care for him a lot, and I know that he cares for me also. So yeah, and of course there are some within that realm that have done atrocious things, but we see the same thing within Judaism and Christianity too. So there's no such thing as a perfect group of people. Emphasis on the word people. All right, let's continue. Florida Huntsman says, the book of Enoch delivered me from paganism by explaining how magic and astrology and various things I know to be true, but are forbidden for us as followers of Yeshua. Interesting, very cool. Paula says, the body of believers of Christ is the church, the temple is within us. Buildings would be better, and buildings would be better used to house the needy. There's a lot to be said to that. But you know, I understand what you're saying. But you know, one of the things that I appreciate about the Catholic Church, nobody in history has had such an impact. For example, starting universities and schools, and starting so many charities and benefiting poor people, starting hospitals, right? This is all work of the Catholic Church. So I think that when people try to point like, why do you have to have these beautiful buildings? Again, it goes back to the thing that we spoke about before about beautifying the commandments. I feel that having truth is just as important as having beauty within the church, because people are attracted to that. And sometimes we need these things to attract people. I know of people that have been converted and into following the ways of God because they saw that, wow, this God must be real, because of the fact that these Christians, these believers are really devoting everything to him, including their skills in buildings and in their finances, and putting it to create these establishments where the true sacrifice is held, right? But that's just how I see it. Again, that's a lot to unpack. Maybe I'll make a video on that at some point, but I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Let's see. Another saint says, how long have you been Messianic? Since I learned about Yeshua. How long did I start walking in the ways of Torah, like keeping Torah, keeping the feast, keeping kosher, keeping all of these things, the traditions? Almost 12 years, I want to say 12 years, give or take. Again, I am pursuing the Orthodox Catholic lifestyle. However, as a Jew, I still keep the traditions of my people. You know, I do it at Shabbat, the traditional sense. I wear a kippah. I celebrate the feasts. I congregate with other Jews. I use Jewish terminology in a lot of my daily speak. So yeah, I still hold on to the traditions, but everything that I do, I try to do it within the lens of Mashiach, recognizing that none of these actions make me better than anyone else. I'm just simply embracing my heritage, and I think it serves in a two-way tool, right? I believe that I've been called to live as a Jew for two purposes. Number one, to help my Jewish brethren see that you can still be Jewish, like you don't have to give up your heritage just to be a follower of Mashiach. See the book of Apostles, the book of Acts, chapter 15 and chapter 21 to understand what I mean. And also to help guide those people within the Hebrew roots and Messianic movements to get out of the trap that many of them fall into, which is they fall in love with the Jewish and Torah roots of the faith, and they end up denying. First, this is usually the path. They fall in love with Torah, then they fall in love with Jewish traditions, then they deny Shaul as an apostle, Paul, and then they deny Yeshua, and then they're just apostate. I've seen this way too many times, and it breaks my heart. And I think a lot of people do it because they're simply misguided. And I think that's the other part of my role as living as a Jew within the church. Again, under the light of Mashiach. Continuing. Okay, Paul says, then they are brothers and sisters. Okay. And then Anthony says, before my wife and I began studying Judaism, her background is Serbian Orthodox. Her uncle's church does recognize the Slavonic book of Enoch. I believe in is Enoch too. Okay. Interesting. Just Cool Production says, what is church Slavonic? Yeah, I also don't know what that Slavonic term means. Zach says, it all comes back to the incarnation. Jesus has redeemed the material, the physical. That's why Catholic churches are big and beautiful. Interesting point of view. Hija, esposa y mamá católica says, what does the veil or rag thing that a Messianic man wear? Why do they wear it? My neighbor's teacher wear while giving them their teachings. Why is that? I ask so I can understand them. Okay, so what Hija, esposa y mamá católica is asking about is the Talit Gadol. I spoke about it before. It's commonly known in English as the prayer shawl. It's basically a big rectangular cloth that you use to hang over you during prayer. Some people wear it every time they go to synagogue. But the important of it is not the sheet itself, but what is attached to the corners, and to the four corners of this garment are attached these things called tzitziot. Tzitziot is the plural. The singular, it's tzitzit. The commandment comes from the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, chapter 15, which God commands the Israelites. This is like towards the end of this chapter, where it says that you are to tie tassels to the four corners of your garment, basically to remind you of the commandments of God when you look at them and to not fall astray. So that's the purpose of them. It's a traditional Jewish garment. I own one myself. I also own the ones that you put within your clothing. So that's what it is, and that's what it's for. I used to have a video about it. I don't know if I still have it. I might have taken it down. But that's what the garment is. It's basically meant to remind you of the commandments of God so that you follow them. But it also is just a traditional Jewish garment. The talit itself, right? The big sheet, that's what that is. Let's continue. Anthony says, it's not my church Slavonic. It's churches within the Slavic language. Like I said, my wife is from Serbia. She was originally Serbian Orthodox, and they recognized the second and Hebrew Enoch. Okay. Rob still says, Shalom, brother. Interesting conversation. I appreciate your humble spirit. God oppose the proud, but shows favor to the humble. And James 4:6. Keep on pursuing and proclaiming Yeshua. Amen. Thank you, Rob, for your kind words. I appreciate that. Florida Huntsman says, the occult is real. If you want to witness the Wiccans and the like, use the book of Enoch and bring them into the Torah and the Bible. Their demons hold their thinking with questions about truth. I see. And Jessica says, is that star pagan? Okay, so that, I don't know if you guys can see it within the comments. The star that Just Cool Productions posted is what is called in English the Star of David. In Hebrew, we know it as the Magen David, which means the shield of David. It's very ancient, with a shape, if you will, or a symbol used within Judaism. A lot of people ask if it's pagan, and a lot of people within the Hebrew roots movement will say that that's the star of Raphaim, I believe, is that pagan god. It's not that star. It's not the same star, and that star is not pagan. Do some pagan people use that star? Probably, I'm sure they use the cross in a pagan way as well, and I actually have seen it. I'm not gonna go into it, but you know that there are people that do that. Just for example, like the symbol used by Stalin and his folks. You know who I'm talking about. I don't want to say the word because of YouTube and its guidelines. But that symbol is also used in Japan, but it's twisted in a different angle. And basically, that's the symbol used to symbolize Shinto, Zen. What is it? Buddhist Shinto. There we go. So it doesn't mean anything according to what those other folks would use it. So symbols can have different meanings according to who's using them. And it's in this case, no, it's not pagan. Hija Esposa y Mama Católica says, do women wear it too? It is sort of like the veil that women wear at the presence of our Lord Jesus in the tabernacle during the Holy Mass and during personal prayer and rosaries. I guess it's similar in a sense. For example, I use from time to time my talit gadol in prayer, as do many other Jews, even Messianic Jews, and even some people within Hebrew roots. It's kind of ironic. But it has a similar idea, which is it's to wrap yourself in the presence of God, or as a symbol of humility. Do women wear it? Some women do. This is a big issue in Israel, in the Holy Land, where the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox are completely against women wearing tzitzit because it goes against the later traditions of the rabbis. But if you look at groups like conservative Jews and Reform Jews, some of them are okay with women wearing them. And same thing with tefillin. All right, continuing the questions, we have one more from Jesco Productions. What does Corinthians 11 mean in regards to head covering? This is a cultural thing. I know a lot of people take it to heart, but basically what the whole point of it was to show the structure within the church, right? You have God the Father, you have we under the Son, you have the man, and then the woman in submission to the man in a marriage scenario. So that's basically what it means. Is it literal? Should women cover their heads? I think it's a good practice. I think it's good in terms of a humble spirit and modesty. I think it's beautiful. A lot of women, but don't ask me about the feeling. I think the best people to ask would be women themselves, how they feel about that. But for me personally, when I see a woman wearing a veil, I think it's beautiful. As for the talit gadol, I think it's a little bit different because even the Torah tells us that men shouldn't be wearing women's garments and women shouldn't be wearing men's garments. And the talit, as it is, the big one, the prayer shawl, I'm not talking about the tzitzit itself, but the talit gadol is a man's garment. That's the societal standard within Judaism, right? It's been that way for millennia. So because it is a men's garment, I don't think women should wear it. Does that make sense? But the tzitzit itself, I don't see a problem because its purpose is good. It's to remind you of the commandments of God. Another question for Hija Esposa y Mama Católica says, it helps us humble ourselves. Hacemos, okay, I don't know what that word is. Ante Dios, porque no somos nada y Dios sabe todo. So yeah, it basically saying that it helps women be more humble and to focus more on God. So, and this is coming from a lady, so that's her insight into that. Another saint says, I'm just trying to make sure. So were you Messianic but now pursuing Orthodox Catholicism? Okay, this is the story, right? My heritage comes from Jewish ancestry, right? My parents lived in Central America, right? My immediate parents, not my ancestors, though you can trace them into Spain all the way through Africa and Israel. And that's just from like 3 generations back. But my parents were, even though they were believers in God, they weren't practicing anything. And then they became Pentecostal Christians, and I was raised that way. And then I took hold of my Jewish heritage, and because I still believe Yeshua is Mashiach, I found the Messianic Jewish movement. So I considered myself as a Messianic Jew in that sense, in that I aligned with that general mentality. But after a while, after doing more research and study, I found out that the church is really, the Catholic Church is the church that Yeshua started. So because of that, I say that I'm pursuing an Orthodox Catholic, authentic Catholicism, right, as my lifestyle. However, because I am still Jewish, and you can't take my Judaism away from me in that sense, my Jewishness, I still live according to the traditions of my fathers. So in that sense, I'm still Messianic. But Messianic to me just means somebody who follows Yeshua. However, clearly stated, I am pursuing an Orthodox Catholic lifestyle. But since I'm a Jew, I also hold on to my traditions. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right, let's continue. By the way, I'm going to be wrapping this up in a little bit. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and I was speaking to my wife, and she said that I should only do this for about 2 hours, because usually at the end of these, I'm dead. And right now is about to be 11 p.m. here in Japan. So I'll just take a couple more questions. If you have more questions, drop them now. Drop all your questions now so we can address them before I call this off, which I will in about maybe 7 minutes. We'll close off. All right. Hija, esposa y mamá católica. Actually, hold on. Wait, going back to Anthony. I hope I answered your question. If I didn't answer it clearly enough, let me know. Anyway, going back to hija, esposa y mamá católica. My point with the view of veiling is my goal for God to increase in my heart and I decrease. Amen. That's a beautiful sentiment to hold behind why you do what you do in regards to veiling. I like that. See, that's beautiful. Florida Huntsman says, pagans use versions of stars. They even use Kabbalah. Paganism is sweeping the planet, diluting the masses. It is very difficult, almost impossible to deliver them. You know what? All we can do for people in situations like this, or in any other situation, apart from the truth, is to us, number one, we have to live the truth that we're seeing within the Church of God, right? We live the truth and be an example. And number two, we need to speak these truths to explain to people why we live, in case they have questions. This is where apologetics comes into play. I don't think everybody should be a hardcore apologist, but you should at least have the basics down on how to defend the faith. And then number three, praying for them, because we cannot transform the hearts of people. All we can do is be examples, pray for them, and God does the rest. Anthony says, have you researched the Talmud prophecies of the rabbinic version of the second coming, the two messiahs, Ben Yosef and Ben David? Yeshua literally fulfills Ben Yosef to the T. My family found the Messiah. Yeah, I have read different rabbinic sources that talk about the Messiah, right? So for those of you that don't know, within Judaism, there are two main views of how the Mashiach will reveal himself. Number one, in the style of Mashiach ben Yosef, which means Messiah, son of Joseph. This is, if we are not worthy, the Mashiach will come as a lowly servant. And if we are worthy, if we are holy, the Mashiach will reveal himself as Mashiach ben David, which means Messiah, son of David. And at that point, he will come as a military leader with his shining armor, basically ready for war against those that oppose God. But yeah, you're right. Mashiach revealed himself as Mashiach ben Yosef, because even the prophecies about Mashiach ben Yosef say that he will come into the city of Jerusalem riding a donkey. And that's what Yeshua did, right? That's what Palm Sunday is about. And we see that for Mashiach ben David, that's exactly what we know in Scripture, how Yeshua will return. So he does fulfill them both, which is, it points to something I said earlier, that is, within Judaism, even Rabbinic Judaism, there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of truth, and a lot of things that even for us believers in Yeshua, we're like, man, they have the truth right there. They're just not putting the dots together. Next, Anthony, another one says, you did. I love your channel. My wife and I are almost in the identical stance as your faith. Hope to chat more next time you're live. Anthony, another thing you can do, if you or any one of you who want to chat even more, make sure you follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is @MessianicMeTV, exactly like the name of this channel. You can email me. My email is the same thing as this channel, messianicmetv@gmail.com. And we can do a Zoom call if any one of you want to just chat, and it could be about these topics or just to get to know each other a little bit more. So email me or message me on Instagram. Continuing. Patrick says, hi, Daniel. Oh, you came in so late. We're about to wrap up. How many minutes do we have? We have 2 minutes before I wrap up. My throat is killing me. So another sip. Hold on. Oh, do you hear that? I don't know if you heard it. My baby's crying in the background, so that means I gotta go soon. All right. Well, let's continue. All right. So Just Cool Production says, a good night for you. Thank you. And Anthony, I think yours is the last one I'm going to take right now. It says, thank you for your time and opinions and answers. I too have a channel and plan on just using it as just a guy who is seeking to observe the Father Almighty. Amen. I encourage you to definitely pursue that. I will give you this piece of advice. When people attack you and they disrespect you, block them. There's no point on getting hate from people. It's okay with taking criticism. It's okay getting questions. It's even okay to debate at times, as long as it's done in a civil manner. So just be ready for that. In case you make videos, you will get attacked, because everybody has their point of view and everybody will believe what they want to believe. All right. One more thing. What does it say? Amen. Hallelujah from Florida Huntsman. Another saint says, I'd love to stay connected with you. Amen. Likewise. And Iham, Esposa y Mama Católica says, my 4 little ones are awake now. I'll be seeing you next time. God bless you. Have a blessed rest. All right. Thank you all. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I appreciate you all being here with me. This was a super fun live. I've talked to new people that I haven't ever spoken to before. So I love you all. Stay in contact. If you appreciate this channel, do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up and share this channel with your friends and family, because it really does help the video on the channel. There's my baby crying, so I gotta go. All right, shalom, shalom. Love you all.